to another episode of Gossip Finance. I am your host, Delasius Inger.
And I'm Duncan Sandlin. How's everybody today? How are you, Lacey?
I'm excellent.
Good.
Got my coffee here, and I'm ready to talk about all the shenanigans going on because I hear there are shenanigans.
There are shenanigans. So let's just dive right into the news. Let's talk about the debt ceiling. So the Republicans just pushed their bill. Biden's he's not going to take it. I would doubt he would. But they had a bunch of cuts and stuff to it. So it's not super popular. I'm not even sure that they get enough Republicans to pass it in the House, but it looks like they passed something. So let's look at what the bill they have going. And this guy, Steve Womack, who's a Republican, is going to comment. But this is CBS News.
Reaction continues to pour in on Speaker McCarthy's debt limit plan. While the White House has pushed back against it, many House Republicans are voicing support for the proposal that could be voted on as early as next week. Arkansas Republican Congressman Steve Womack joins us now. He sits on the House Appropriations Committee. Congressman, thanks for taking the time. Where does the debt limit stand inside the House GOP?
Well, we've put our proposal forward, but the bigger answer is we hit the debt ceiling some months ago, and here we are with extraordinary measures needing to find a path forward to get the debt ceiling raised, and that's going to require the work of the House and the Senate. The House yesterday put its proposal together to, its purpose in doing several things, but more than anything, besides lifting the debt ceiling, it's sending a signal to the American public that we are serious about stopping the digging of the hole that we happen to be in right now, $32 trillion. So we offered our proposal yesterday. We'll probably vote on it next week. And once it clears the House and gets to the Senate, then the negotiations can then begin.
What about Speaker McCarthy's plan? Can he count on your vote all the way?
Oh, he's got my vote. And look, he's got the vote, I think, of the clear majority of our conference. And frankly, I'd be surprised if we don't have 218 votes to be able to push this through the House next week. I think...
He doesn't seem that confident to me. How about you? Oh, man. Well, it's, it's not super popular. Because this is the problem. So McCarthy, when he became Speaker of the House, right? Remember, he lost, God, how many times? It was like 20.
I don't know. It was something super crazy and embarrassing.
Because he had to suck up to the crazy MAGA crowd, and then he had to suck up to the more establishment kind of Republicans. So he ended up making deals with all these people. So he's got all these people he's got to make happy. And it's one of those things where we're doing the debt ceiling because we want to cut stuff. And they always do it like this, the Republicans, because I'm going to do the debt ceiling. We're going to say we're going to cut all this stuff. And hopefully the president will agree to it. And then if the president agrees to it, then when we run for election next time, we're going to say, look what the president cut. Right? And they're going to blame it on him. They always do this. But they didn't really know what to cut. So it ended up getting crazy stuff. So they're going to cut SNAP, which is the supplement nutrition program, right? So for elderly people, single parents, stuff like that, this is a big program. It's food stamps.
Even just single people that don't make very much,
So yeah, they're going to cut food stamps.
Okay, so essentially, there's a recession being manufactured,
by the Fed. Coming up.
By the Fed.
Yep.
Which, obviously, other parts of the government are aware of.
With 2 million, roughly 2 million people probably be unemployed. More people.
Right. So what we're going to do is we're going to make 2 million more people become unemployed, who theoretically are going to need more resources, and instead we're going to take SNAP
away.
Or defund it or whatever, make they're less available. That literally makes no sense.
Well, it'll raise crime, death rates will go up. It'll be horrible. But what like I said, they're just going to then blame it all on Biden. It's the Republican way of doing it. They've been doing this since the 80s. It's the government doesn't work, so elect me so I can screw it up even worse to prove to you that it doesn't work. And then I'm going to blame the other guy for it. So they're going to cut SNAP. The IRS was going to add. The IRS is adding 87,000 new agents that they've desperately needed for a long time, which is huge for revenue in this country and to stop tax fraud and things like that. So it'll be a big boom for the government to get a lot more. They'll be getting a lot more money in just by hiring these people, but they want to cut that. So no new agents to the IRS, even though the IRS is practically gutted as it is. They want to get rid of the student loan forgiveness, and they want to cut back, I think, on the PSLF student loan forgiveness and reduce who they're giving it to.
So when you say they want to get rid of the student loan forgiveness, do you mean the one that is also a
the one that's in the Supreme Court? The one that's in the Supreme Court now. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But they also want to cut other forgiveness programs. PSLF being one of them for civil employees and teachers and stuff. So they want to do that, and then Biden also proposed a lot of environmental tax cuts for clean energy for businesses, and they want to cut that completely. The problem is with cutting that, and Biden's team pointed out, is that's going to produce at least 100,000 new jobs over the next year or two. So basically, you're going to cut even more jobs during a recession and cut food stamps and cut the IRS's ability to take money from the rich, right, that they've been hiding. And you're going to get rid of any student loan forgiveness, so people are still trapped into their student loan debt. So, yeah. If anything, Biden...
Your student loan debt and you're broke and you need some food stamps, you can't have those either.
Nope. And that's the deal, is Biden's just going to be like, no, I'm not going. Biden's not going to go for this. He'd be stupid.
No, of course not.
No, he'd be stupid to go for this heading into a presidential.
They'd have to rug and blindfold him and somebody be like holding his hand with the pen in it or something to get this thing going through.
Well, furthermore, like I said, they're voting on it later this week. So if you're watching this, they might have already voted on it by the time this gets out. But they're voting on it. Did they get it? Did they even get the votes? Because it's not clear that they have the number. And that guy didn't seem real confident on it. So we'll see. We'll see. There's no reason going into any his more of his talking points. He's just going to jabber. The other thing I really love is when they bring up we have the 31 trillion in debt. And it's like, okay, that's true, right? But 8 of that was from Trump. So 1/4 of it was from Trump.
How quickly they forget.
Right. And some of that was COVID. I'll give him points for that. Some of that was COVID. But most of that was because of the 2017 tax cuts he gave to the rich.
Oh, wait, you mean those tax that happened and the $30 that went into my paycheck, and then for the first time in history, I ended up owing in the thousands.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the year when I did my taxes.
Yeah,
well, thanks, Trump. Gave me an extra $30, and then took way more than that on the other end.
And a lot of that's fully kicked in now. So this year, the average person, right, got way less in taxes than they normally did. So I don't know about your clients you do taxes for, but the few I did taxes for, it was a lot less than last year and the year, which was less than the year before. Yeah.
I was kind of like the Grim Reaper this year, man. Like, they all love me, but they were not excited about our...
No, they were... My clients were pissed.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Mine were, too. They were like, how? Everybody wanted to Zoom with me so I could, like, just go through the return with them, which is fine. I do that with people, but they just wanted to see, how is it this bad?
It's because they finally kicked in. You're paying for those rich people's tax cuts. Congratulations. Right. You know, if you're a Republican, you voted for this, so congratulations. You guys were all excited about the Paul Ryan tax cuts that Trump signed off on, but now you're crying to me. All right. Well, so there's the debt ceiling issue, then there's the recession issue. So let's watch this, because this, I got this, where did I get this clip from? But they had some good takes. This CNBC. And they're talking about the recession here real quick. Let me.
Of BNY Mellon Wealth Management, Joe, of course, CNBC contributor. Tough day. I mean, the earnings not great, and the data's just bad. I don't know. We don't want to sugarcoat it. It's just bad data today.
It's recessionary. That's exactly what it is. Philly Fed is minus 31.
The last times that Philly Fed was minus 31, 2020, 2008, 2001, 1991. I told you I was concerned.
All right, so this guy, Joe Terranova, I want to point this out. He makes a good point, and this is a good learning experience, children, because what he's talking right, teaching moment. He's talking about leading indicators in the market, right, and leading economic indicators. So they're leading and lagging, right? So leading indicators are things that potentially could predict what's going to happen, right, or things that point to this is going to happen, and lagging are things that happen after the fact. So like unemployment would be like a lagging indicator because people lose their jobs after the recession starts, right? But lagging are important because it's a good measure of how bad it was and did it really happen, right? So you have to have the lagging indicators too. But he's talking about leading indicators, and right now when he's talking about the Philly Fed, it's the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia. Okay, now there's the main Federal Reserve Bank in the United States, but there's a bunch of smaller ones throughout the country that have different regions that they do. But the Philly one is really a big one because it has, for finance people, it has two big things. One, it's a leading indicator for manufacturing. So if the Philly Fed is reporting bad results, negative results, then it means they're not expecting manufacturing to go up much, right? The other thing about it is they do a report. I forget what it's officially called. It's a long title, but it's usually we just call it the Anxious Index, which talks about how anxious people are in the market or the economy actually is, right? And so
I've heard of that, but I kind of love that because, like, anxiety, that's real, man. And having some data on that.
Well, it doesn't hurt to look it up. They do one every quarter, but it gives you kind of a sense of what the market's doing, what the economy's kind of doing going forward, and it gives you that kind of a leading. So when he's talking about the Philly Index, the last time they were kind of at this point were 220 during COVID, 2020, right? And then what else did he say? Was it I can't remember the exact dates. He did 2020. He did 2008. Right before the big housing crash, 2001, 91, all before big crashes. So the last of the Philly Index was looking at this. There were recessions right after. So that's a leading indicator, and he's pointing out that the last time they were kind of this bearish on things, and that was their report. It didn't lead to good things afterwards. So that's
if we want to say that the past is potentially going to predict the future, what we're looking at right now.
Well, we can never say the past predicts the future, but what we can say is in the past, this is what's happened. So there is
every time you've seen this other thing happens.
Right.
You might want to keep your eyes peeled.
So the probability is probably a little bit higher than we would like it to be on that front. But he's saying, so this idea that, we know the Fed was trying to push us into a recession by raising interest rates. But he's telling you that, now we're seeing it. Right? So if you're somebody who plays stocks, these are the kinds of things you want to be paying attention to all the time.
For sure. I mean, nothing can tell you for certain what's going to happen. But, geez, when you see stuff like that, you go, well...
Yeah, maybe I should...
we have a pattern.
Maybe I should rethink. Well, he's going to go into some more leading indicators, too, I think.
All right,
let's see. The rhetoric that we heard from the Federal Reserve means they do not understand the environment that we're in right now. Auto loans, delinquencies are beginning to rise. What's the most important payment that you have? It's your car payment. We saw it represented today in the statistics for housing. We see it universally. The economy right now, leading indicators, negative territory. The economy...
So he makes a good point there. So once again, leading indicators. But that's something to look at, right? People defaulting on their car payments or delinquencies on car payments. When he points that out, well, that's the most important payment. Most people are like, well, no, it's your house or blah, blah, blah. We can argue about that. But for this purpose, it's the most important because it's the one that you can't get to your job without a car for most people. So if you see car payments becoming delinquent or people defaulting, that's really dangerous because and people are more likely to delay paying their mortgage than their car because your car can easily be repossessed. It's a lot harder to repossess your house and it takes a lot longer. So you can get some more leeway on your home. Rent is a different issue, but car payments is a really big indicator. So because car payments also cover a lot of renters. So there's that. And he's saying we're starting to see it too with homes. So when you're starting to see this stuff, it's starting to look like, yeah, there's going to be a recession. There's going to be some pain. But once again, this is going to affect especially lower class people and their ability to survive. And then we're going to see unemployment then, like I said, a lagging indicator, rise once once a recession hits. Because companies are going to want to do layoffs to cut their red ink, to slash their red ink in order to cover their costs. So he's made some good points just on simple leading indicators that, like, if you see that, red flag, right?
As we sit here today, is probably in a recession. Is it statistically in a recession? Maybe it's not, but it sure feels like for consumers that's exactly where we are. Look at the market. Where's oil? Oil is $1.50 above the level before the announcement of OPEC. That's on demand concerns. Look at gold. If we have a chart of gold this week, you'll see that you had a significant dip down to 1980. They came in, they bought it. Why? Because it's the disinflationary proxy, and the 2 years moving down again. We've got a problem economically. Energy's weak.
Just real quick on oil and gold. Those are wealthy investors, especially if they have a lot of cash and they feel like there's going to be a recession and their cash is going to be worth less. Then what they tend to do is they tend to invest in things like gold, oil, treasury, inflation, protected securities, things like that. But the more you see those being bought, it means that wealthy investors are starting to panic about their cash reserves. And so they're trying to invest. So let's see what she has to say, because I think she says some smart stuff.
Tech is weak today. Discretionary is weak. What do we make of it?
So we're slow walking to the recession. It's not the boom that we thought it might be during the banking incident. I'm going to call it an incident and not a crisis, because so far it's not a crisis.
I agree.
But we're slow walking because of the contraction of credit. And the sectors that have got us to this point, with the S&P up 8% and NASDAQ up 16%, are really the sectors that are next up for some weakness here. Because ultimately, you cannot have a contraction of credit in small, medium-sized banks and not have it affect the real economy. Now, I still think the Fed hikes in May. It's all, the market's giving it to them at this point. It's 90%, 88% chance they're going to do it.
Not giving them anything more than that, though, right? If you look at the bond market.
Not giving them any more than that. But if there's a sort of linear progression downward in real activity, the Fed is not going to cut, because this is what they wanted, and they're going to get it.
Tesla's been
now that's an interesting point.
Yeah, Duncan, can you break this down, what she's getting at a little bit more clearly for us?
Yeah, so she's talking about, okay, what the market's doing, the parts of the market that are lagging. And they had it up on the screen there for a minute, discretionary and technology and some other stuff. They're the ones that you typically see go down first prior to a recession, because they're the ones that are a little bit more speculative for people. They tend to have, a little bit more volatility. The ones that have been sort of holding, she doesn't foresee them doing well, is basically what she's saying, that they're weak right now because the Fed has raised interest rates. So what that does is it squeezes credit, because now credit's become more expensive. Because once the Fed raises their interest rate, it goes down to the large banks and the medium banks, the small banks, and then your bank, right? And by the time it gets to you, that 0.25% raise that they made could be 3%, 4%, whatever it is, right? So people are borrowing less businesses are borrowing less, which means there's less people creating new business or new jobs. Right.
Right.
And that's what the Fed wanted to do. So it's going to squeeze that in the market. The next point she made, let me have her say it one more time, because it's the last point she made was interesting because she kind of gives her little theory about this. Let me just see. I can.
Linear progression downward in real activity, the Fed is not going to cut because this is what they wanted and they're going to get it.
Okay. So the Fed's idea, from her perspective, and she's probably right, I would agree with her on this, is the Fed thought, okay, we're going to raise the rates. This will squeeze inflation because that was their goal. So we're seeing a linear progression downwards in the market, right? It's not drastic. It's kind of predictable. And inflation's going down. And so whether that's because the Fed did this or it's just going down because things are leveling out is a different.
Because we suspected that maybe they've been taking a little unnecessary action because it was already going the right direction.
Yeah, most people think that's the point. Right. But as long as it's doing that, the Fed can justify that what it's doing is correct. And since that's what's happening at this moment, right, her prediction is, well, as long as it continues on that line, right, where the Fed feels comfortable with it, that it justifies their action, the Fed's going to continue to raise the rate. They're going to raise it again in May. They might raise it again later in the summer. So the Fed's going to feel justified in their action, regardless of the fact that it's created a recession. Because they're going to feel like we did actually do our job and squeeze inflation. Right? No, I mean, it's literally the question is, I mean, are they just doing a rain dance and then, oh, now that it's sprinkling a little bit, right, it must be the rain dance.
It feels a little that way to me.
Right.
But, because you and I and a whole lot of other people already kind of felt like it was looking like it was already starting to go the right direction anyway. It feels like somebody tried to take an action unnecessarily just so they can claim credit for something.
Right. What it feels like is it started to sprinkle and then they started doing the rain dance and now they're taking credit for the rain. Right.
When it's raining a little bit harder, they were like, yeah, that was because we danced.
Right.
Not because it was already kind of raining and it got harder.
Yeah. And I'm sure that those two agree with us because the way they're talking about this is pretty sarcastically. Which is, the Fed's getting what they want, so they're going to keep pretending like but that's kind of what she said. And I think she knocked it out of the park. I think she could be wrong. I could be wrong. You could be wrong. But I think she knocked that one out of the park. I think she's probably going to be dead on right. But we'll see. We'll see. It'll be fun. It'll be fun to watch, boys and girls. Not really, because millions of people are going to be impoverished. But, it'll be what it's going to be. Anyway, let's go to... let's go to this. So, Clarence Thomas. My least favorite judge. Whew. I actually saw him live once.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, when I was at college, he spoke there. Not at our school. No, when I was when I went to grad school, I went to the private school. Yeah, and he came and he spoke, and it was pretty like everybody left kind of like, did he really just spend 10 minutes telling us that voting's not a right?
Shut up. Really?
Yep, he doesn't believe that voting should be a right. He's out there. He is way out there. Anyway, his.
So many of our viewers know how we can apply for Canadian citizenship. Please leave that information below.
Well, and his wife was involved with the January 6th insurrection, and he didn't. And he should have recused himself from some of those cases, and he didn't. But he's in really hot water now. Why? Because the last 10 years, Clarence Thomas has been taking bribes in the forms of vacations and stuff like that from a far, far right-wing billionaire who donates and has think tanks and stuff, and it's all come out, and he's never reported it, and he's never recused himself from cases where it could be directly involved. But the biggest one, the one that's well, I mean, there's a ton of them that are horrible, but this is one of the big ones. Lawrence O'Donnell from MSNBC. He's gonna walk you in to the magic of Clarence Thomas's under the money table taking activities.
Well, we begin this hour with breaking news about Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, is calling for an investigation of Justice Thomas tonight by Attorney General Merrick Garland, quote, for potential violations of the Ethics of Government Act under Chapter 5 of the United States Code, Section 13106. Senator Whitehouse will be our first guest tonight in this breaking news coverage of a first in American history. In the 234-year history of the United States Supreme Court, no member of the United States Supreme Court has ever appeared clearly to break the law until now. Clarence Thomas absolutely violated the federal law cited by Senator Whitehouse in his demand for an investigation of Clarence Thomas by the Attorney General. The law could not be more clear or more simple. It requires Supreme Court justices and other federal employees to report any real estate transaction, quote, which exceeds $1,000 in real property other than property used solely as a personal residence of the reporting individual. The law makes it clear that Clarence Thomas and other federal employees do not have to disclose real estate transactions involving their personal homes, the place where they actually live. Clarence Thomas clearly and sharply violated this law by not reporting the sale of real estate 9 years ago that he owned but did not live in. That sale exceeded $1,000. To not report that sale is a definite and clear violation of...
Yeah, I forget how slow Lawrence is. Let's see. He gets into it here in a second. We'll speed him up. Get to the point, Lawrence. I know you're trying to fill a full hour, but come on, man.
Of federal law by Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. And it gets worse. Clarence Thomas secretly sold the property to billionaire and Nazi memorabilia collector Harlan Crow in 2014.
Oh, I want to get to that. This guy, Harlan Crow, one of the biggest collectors of Nazi memorabilia in the United States. Just to give you a background on this guy.
Oh boy.
And how right-wing he is. So this is all about Crow bought Clarence Thomas's mom's house that she still lives in. They're going to get into this. What was that?
Therefore, basically becoming her landlord.
Yeah, but she lives there for free.
It just keeps getting better.
$363. That real estate sale included the home of Clarence Thomas's mother, who is still living in the home, appears to be still living in that home to this day at age 94. A home owned now by right-wing Republican billionaire Harlan Crow. Clarence Thomas's mother has a roof over her head tonight thanks to a Republican billionaire who is giving it to her. Clarence Thomas was a co-owner of his mother's home with his mother when it was sold to Harlan Crow. Harlan Crow immediately relieved Clarence Thomas of the cost of paying the property tax on the home, and then immediately commissioned an architect to design and build very significant improvements to the home, so that Harlan Crow was not just paying for Clarence Thomas's mother to continue living where she was living, but was adding substantial upgrades to Clarence Thomas's mother's home and her daily life. And we should all be very happy for Clarence Thomas's mother that a surge of money into her home in Savannah, Georgia, that a Supreme Court justice could not afford, has significantly improved her living conditions. And the only thing Clarence Thomas had to do to make the entirety of this transaction completely legal in every way for a Supreme Court justice was to simply Tell us about it.
That's it. And that's the kicker. It would have been completely legal if he'd have reported it. That's what's just screwed up in itself and of itself. Don't get me wrong. That's totally fucked.
So
But
confusing why he wouldn't declare it.
because
That's all he had to do. Because nobody even had to approve of it technically, right? He literally just had to declare its existence.
But if he reports it, right? Now there's a big question of, does he have a conflict of interest? Because the guy who owns it, the billionaire who owns it, is a right-wing donor and has a political agenda. So now if things like, oh, I don't know, the Dobbs case where they shot down Roe v. Wade, if that comes up, now there's a question of, should Clarence Thomas even be voting on that case or passing judgment on that case, because he's in the pocket of a billionaire who's a right-wing guy who's against it. So he could be, and he's bought. So now he should recuse himself from that case, shouldn't he? The problem here
Really, he should do so on a lot of cases, honestly.
The problem is that for so long, it's just been, we just trust that the Supreme Court are 9 people that are just interpreting the law, and that's all they're doing. And that their ethics are, above par, and they're good people, and they're just interpreting the law as best they can. Now, nope, they're all political. It's all political. They're taking money. They're getting voted in by judges. Most of the Supreme Court now, a lot of them come from the Heritage Foundation, recommended them to Republican presidents. All three that Trump got were all Heritage Foundation. Trump just basically picked a name off a list. I remember when they asked the guy when Kavanaugh, right? And they asked the guy from the Heritage Foundation, well, what'd you give Trump? He's like, well, we gave him a list of, whatever it was, a dozen judges that we think are good. And they were like, do you have any you like? He's like, no, they're all good on the list, because they're all going to give us what we want, right, as conservatives. And then they asked him, well, do you have any you like? No, they're all okay. And then I think John Oliver made a joke about that, where he's like, they basically just asked that guy, what's your favorite pickle in a pickle jar? And he's like, I don't know, man. It's a pickle jar. If it's in the jar, it's a fucking pickle. But that's pretty much how these guys are. But yeah, Clarence Thomas taking money for over a decade from this guy. Finally came out. So basically we could say the Supreme Court John Roberts, who's the what is he, the Supreme whatever justice, whatever, I forget what it's called, head justice, his court is going to be remembered as corrupt, backwards, politically bought. I mean, his whole legacy is shit.
Now, this is the first time in American history something like this has happened.
That we know about, yeah. What was that?
What happens? Well, what happens now? This is the first time, something like this has come out in American history. Who knows whether it's happened before, that never got caught.
Right.
But what happens now?
Well, the question is right now they're going to probably try and push for an investigation into what he's done, right? I would also like them to investigate Alito, because I think Alito probably leaked the Dobbs decision, which fucked that whole thing up. But they probably do an investigation, and it could be that, a year from now, whatever, they impeach him. And then the likelihood that they impeach him and he gets impeached is really small, but it could happen. But, we'll see. But yeah, there really isn't anything in the books for how to deal with this. I mean, other than impeachment. And it's really difficult to impeach. So we'll see. But I got to tell you, because Clarence Thomas, can you imagine being a 94-year-old black woman, and now you're watching on the news and you just find out that your house is you've been living in for the last, or for a long time, but especially in the last 9 or 10 years, you've been living in this house and you've been taking money from a fucking Nazi. Your son has been taking money from a Nazi and he's a Supreme Court justice. I mean, how my parents would fucking disown me, man. I don't know.
Yeah, man, I'd be calling the movers. I mean, because at 90-some years old, I probably wouldn't be moving myself, but if I had it together enough to be dialing and talking to movers, I'd be like, get me out of here.
Yeah. Well, let's do one last fun thing for the news. So, the Bud Light controversy. It's been going on all week. We had to jump in. So, Bud Light did a thing where it's this woman, trans woman, Dylan Mulvaney. She's a big like TikTok influencer person, and Bud Light gave her some kids a beer with her face on them to do a spokes ad for them. And she did. I would, wouldn't you? Well, I'll take that money, sure.
Absolutely. And let me just pause right here before we even go any further and say this all sounds like it should be in the realm of things that are not news. Okay, a company had a person do a thing as a spokesperson
Yeah.
for advertising. Well,
Yeah, whoopty
right?
shit, yeah. So anyway, but because the conservatives are all on their big anti-trans thing, there's 8 states that have bills where like kids can't play sports or get medical care who are transgender. For those, I mean, and a lot of that's therapy. I mean, so it's like, but anyway, that's one of their big things is they were anti-transgender people, which is a normal conservative fascist kind of thing to do. Let's find a marginalized group and fucking demonize them and attack them. If it wasn't transgender people,
difficult as possible.
well, but see, the long arc of history moves left, right? Because it's like, well, we used to be able to do it to the blacks and the Hispanics, and then that fucking civil rights, and we just get called racist now. So, who else we got? Oh, the homosexuals. Let's go after the homosexuals. Da-da-da-da. Oh, okay, well, shit, that didn't work. All right, so what's left? Soon they're going to be going after the redheads. There are fewer redheads than trans people, just so you know.
Again, Canada looks real good.
I don't know. Again, I'm just getting to be a little conservative too. But anyway, here's the advertisement that she did for them. She just did her own little TikTok thing. It's cute. It's not, I mean, there's nothing to it. I'll just show you. It's real quick. So she's dressed up like Holly Golightly from, what was that? Oh gosh. Why am I blanking on this book? Breakfast at Tiffany's. You remember that book, that movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's dressed up like Audrey Hepburn from that.
Impressive carrying skills, right? I got some Bud Lights for us. So, I kept hearing about this thing called March Madness, and I thought we were all just having a hectic month, but it turns out it has something to do with sports. And I'm not sure exactly which sport, but either way, it's a cause to celebrate. This month, I celebrated my day 365 of womanhood, and Bud Light sent me possibly the best gift ever, a can with my face on it. Check out my Instagram story to see how you can enjoy March Madness with Bud Light. I am at Kate Spade.
Okay, so that was it. That was the ad she did for Bud Light.
It was cute and nothing
to it.
Weird about yeah.
But conservatives flipped out. They were like, "We're gonna boycott Anheuser-Busch that makes Bud Light," and it didn't hurt Anheuser-Busch. Their stock's still up, so it's not like it hurt them at all.
Literally didn't even hardly do anything. I mean, it was cute, but not even very exciting. My God, it's not like she was pole dancing with a bud or something. She didn't do anything.
No, and here's the thing that's funny about that too is the owners of Anheuser-Busch are big Republican donors. They're doing this to reach other markets. They're not doing this for a political reason. They don't care. And in fact, they actually issued an apology for it to some of the Republicans because they are Republican donors. But it was the weirdest thing. It's like, but yeah, it didn't hurt their sales or anything at all. But people from the Republicans flipped out, conservatives flipped out. And I just have a clip. This is hilarious. So this guy got really upset about, I guess, a transgender person doing a beer commercial. And he was.
Because transgender people can't drink beer.
No, they drink white wine spritzers.
Exclusively. That's the only thing they're allowed to drink.
So this guy flipped out. These people got him on tape, and this is funny. So this is what we're gonna do some talking over this because this is just fucking hilarious. So this guy flipped out about this. It's a conservative guy.
Shut the front door. I feel so bad for the people who work in this supermarket. What do those poor supermarket workers do? They have to clean all this up.
No, he's all pissed off about. Oh man! So he trashed the beer, but what's really funny is he didn't trash the Bud Light. He trashed the Anheuser-Busch or the Busch beer, right? It's like, dude, everybody knows lesbians drink Busch beer. You're going after the wrong group.
Oh my god.
So yeah, he's all upset and trashing the beer. Because that'll show him how.
What the hell?
Oh, here he goes, getting arrested.
I mean, can you imagine you're going to do your weekly grocery shopping and you just walk past an aisle and there's some dude losing his mind, throwing beer all over the place?
Well, Anheuser-Busch, I'm sure, learned their lesson from that action on his part. Plus, I read another thing. I guess this guy had a previous. I don't know that he's a sex offender, but he had a previous case where he exposed himself to people, and so this is a guy with serious problems.
Oh,
I'm not mental problems, but just conservative problems. Well, how many?
I don't know what kind of problems. I can't categorize that kind of problem, but he's got some.
I don't know. The last 5 episodes we've done in the last 5 weeks, because we do one a week. We've done how many stories? 3 or 4 stories about conservatives exposing themselves or doing something sexually illegal. I mean, it seems like every week we get one of these. So
you know what? I hadn't thought about that, but I think you're right. We actually have gotten a lot of these.
Yeah. So that's funny.
Another pattern has emerged.
Oh man, there's so much more. Okay, so we get to Kid Rock, who's the former rock star. So he was upset about this too. So he did a little video, and I want to clarify this. Kid Rock is he's a multi-millionaire, right? Several times over. He's got this huge house, ton of land. So here he is by his house and I think his personal lake. Man of the people getting upset at Bud Light. From Kid Rock himself.
Grandpa's feeling a little frisky today. Let me say something to all you and be as clear and concise as possible.
So, in some ways, these freaks, and I'm just going to go ahead and call it that, these freaks are actually giving more advertising to
Bud Light,
Bush, etc. Like they're giving so much free advertising through their flipping out.
Well, it's virtue signaling crap. I mean, and the other thing that's funny is it's like this guy doesn't do his own shopping, right? So what does that mean? He sees this, he gets upset. He calls his butler. Wadsworth, go down to the store, buy me $100 worth of fucking Bud Light, set it up on a table out by the river. Furthermore, the other thing that was so funny about this, and this was kind of came out later, and I don't know if it's true, it's a rumor, but he is such a bad shot, even with an automatic weapon, that I don't know if you can see from the sides, there's muzzle flare coming from the right, because he had his assistant or somebody next to him with a shotgun to help him. And they still only got one of the fucking cases out of the 3. I could do better with my fucking handgun. And it only holds 7 rounds. Oh man, I fucking love it. That shit's hilarious.
Right, old man rock.
Well, I mean, a lot of it's just they're not really upset. It's the anti-trans thing is part of it, but a lot of it's just virtue signaling to that crazy Trump base kind of shit. That's all it is. That's all this really is. And then, you know, are they really going to boycott freaking Bud Light? No. I mean, sales will go back up next month. Everybody will forget. But our last video of this, because the Bud Light, because it was just so stupid, and it just kept piling and piling and piling. Is Marjorie Taylor Greene makes a comment on it, but she really steps in it because she basically gives up how much of a hypocrite she is and the whole right-wing movement is. And nobody's prompting her. She's doing this like on her own little talk show or whatever it is. But this is, she just hands it to us.
What is happening to Bud Light is every single red-blooded American, every single redneck across America, and I love them because they're my friends, are canceling Bud Light. And they're canceling Bud Light, one of their own, because they are so fed up and angry about it. You see, a lot of corporations are always worried about being attacked by the woke mob. The real huge group of consumers you should be afraid of is the right mob. Those are conservative Americans that once they've had enough, they will cancel you so hard, and they don't care who you donate your money to. They will cancel you so hard and they'll never come back.
Anyway, so the thing I think is funny about that is we did a video on her not too long ago where she was bitching about Twitter canceling her. And the cancel culture of the left and the radical left mob trying to cancel us. And now she's saying, no, we're the radical right mob and we're going to cancel you. It's like nobody A, canceled you. B, now you're just basically admitting you've been accusing the left of doing what you've been doing the whole fucking time. What you really want to do.
What you want to be doing.
Right. So she just admits all that.
You think somebody else is maybe like doing the thing better, or I don't, whatever.
That's what I love about her. She's too stupid to hide the ball. She just says it. Everybody knows. You all know that person that accuses you of something, and as soon as they accuse you, you're like, you're fucking doing that, aren't you? Everybody knows that guy.
Yeah. The person who like is jumping up and down. I know people like this in my personal life. You know, they get super upset about something. They start like jumping up and down about whatever, and become all accusatory. While you kind of sit back and go, what? All right, what are you doing? Because this all seems a little much.
Right. It's the old joke about you know your boyfriend's cheating on you and he starts accusing you of cheating. Right? Where you going? I'm going out with some friends. Yeah, bullshit. Call him right now. I want to talk to him. You're going out to hit on another guy. Oh, shit.
The second they say, call them up, I want to talk to them, you're like, nah, I am not.
Yeah, girl, get out of there. Kick him to the curb. Get the fuck out of there.
Don't walk, run.
Oh God. But anyways, that was the news. We'll get into we got a couple clips here. What are we doing on time? We're back now. We're gonna do let's do a couple clips. So we have Dave Ramsey, and they're talking about the reason behind the anti-work movement. But I don't think Dave actually looked it up, which, would not be a first for the Dave Ramsey crew. They tend to not look things up and just comment on headlines. So let's go ahead and start with that. But yeah, we'll tell you what it is. But let's watch him. Let's watch him F it up first.
The reason we have movements right now among a lot of young people on social media that's called the anti-work movement is because they've never been taught real financial literacy. Because this young man, take this question right here, and he begins to understand what we just said to him. He begins to tell his money what to do, the budget as Dave just laid out. And here's what happens. Individual responsibility flourishes when you get taught that you can have enough money. But this anti-work movement, all this junk that's out there is coming from young people who've never been taught how to manage their money, and thus they don't have enough, and then they begin to say, I work too hard, I don't have enough money, I want the government to supply me the money. And I'm not trying to make this political because it's not. It's actually sociological. When you understand how to handle money as a young person, with what we teach in Financial Literacy Month and everything we're doing, parents
control your destiny.
if
you'll get off your little butt.
And then they become hard workers because they go, I like what money allows me to do.
I can be generous. I can be helpful. That's right. I can be calm. I don't have to be pissed off all the time.
That's true.
So, what is the anti-work movement? Well, apparently it's just a bunch of guys who don't want to work, who don't understand money, spend too much. They want the government to take care of them. Blah 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 blah. That's what it is, right? Wrong. And it's not recent. This has been going on for a while. So here's an article. We'll just skim through it real quick. So the anti-work movement kind of became a big thing. Initially, it started in 2013, but it became a bigger thing after COVID. And they're talking about in the article in August of last year. This is last year's article. A lot of people left their jobs, and and a lot of it was dissatisfaction, right? And a lot of what it came down to was a lot of people were just thinking, "Oh, it's these guys who don't want to work or are lazy." Well, that's not really what it is. It's about starting a conversation about treatment at work and about quality of life at work, right? So they go through this. Those who are quitting their jobs, for the most part, are neither lazy nor looking to be unemployed. They're simply looking for a kinder, more supportive employers and a better work-life balance. So they're looking to have more leverage at their work, right? Being able to say, look, I don't want to have to work 60 hours a week. I don't want to be in a position where I'm always afraid my boss is going to fire me or I'm being bullied. And sexual harassment is always a problem with that kind of stuff too. They're also sitting there going, well, look, I mean, maybe we should move to different models of work, where we, like a 5-day work week. That was an arbitrary thing that was made up in like 1900. Right.
Well, and now tell me if I'm getting this wrong here, but if memory serves me correctly, wasn't part of the point of the 5-day work week is it was actually intended, the 40-hour work week, 5 days a week thing was intended to be a scale down from being 12 hours.
7 days a week.
7 days a week.
Right.
With no days off. Like it was actually intended to be alleviating of issues.
Right. But these are things that that we got through unionization. Right.
Right.
Not to say the unions weren't corrupt and whatnot, but the thing is we got a lot of good things out of that, like child labor laws. We got good things like the 5-day work week. But that was kind of an arbitrary thing that they negotiated. It's not like that was a well thought out. That's just kind of how it landed. Right. But things like benefits, a lot of people don't have benefits. We've covered that before. Like almost half of workers, don't have retirement benefits provided by their employer. A lot of people don't have medication or Medicare, or not Medicare, but just health insurance provided by their employer. if you have kids, you're paying daycare out of your own pocket. Most employers don't reimburse you for that or help you pay for that. That's what they're talking about. They're talking about a better work environment, and one where I can focus also on my quality of life, not just working all the time to acquire money. Where they went with it was, well, no, this is just they're lazy. They don't understand. If they knew how to manage their money better, right, then they'd have all this stuff. Well,
Right. It seems like they literally just had no idea what the point was, because
right.
it honestly doesn't have much to do with money. It has way more to do with the quality of life than an amount being earned or that sort of thing.
Well, right. But the point is if you're killing yourself 60 hours a week, right, and you're in a volatile work environment where you're always at risk of your boss threatening to fire you all the time, right, or it's just hostile in every way, and it's damaging to your social life and your ability to have any sort of life or family, then it doesn't matter how well you manage your money. It doesn't. That's what they're not getting here. Is it's not about acquiring of cash. These people are not against working. They just don't want to. They just don't want to be taken advantage of and brutalized. Essentially,
well, cash is besides the point. The point has more to do with
quality of life.
Saying, the quality of life. You know, and I think there's probably some sort of side elements of, you know, that relate to quality of life that have to do with wanting a little more custody of your time, people not wanting to grind it out like 60 hours a week just to climb a corporate ladder or whatever. COVID sort of taught them, like, maybe I'm just good with like my standard 40 and I don't need to be killing myself at 60 because there's kind of just like some other stuff I want to do, exercise with kids.
Right, absolutely. But that's the thing they're not getting. So like, but think about it. Let's look at it. I'll put it on my employer hat, right? I'm the employer. Look, I'm trying to make money, but from the employer standpoint, right? I want to work you to death if I can and pay as least as I can because that's how I make my money. So if I were employer, right, like Dave Ramsey is, and like what they're kind of doing here, I'd be sitting there going, well, look, man, if you just kill yourself and work really, really hard and acquire enough money, then eventually you'll have all these things that you want. But when? 10 years now? 20? 30? Right? That's the whole point of the movement is no, I want this now. Right? I want to have a better quality of life now.
I don't want to kill myself working 60 hours a week to maybe have that in 20 years.
Right. But they can't. No, it has to be about, you know, you have to suffer in order to get that. The reverse argument is, no, I don't. I can just quit. And they say, well, no, but if you quit, then you're never going to get it and you're a loser. It's like, okay. See, their argument doesn't do anything. Yeah, but that's what the point is that's what they're going to argue here. But that's all it is it's just horse shit at the end of the day. So.
Yeah, right. You know, it's just, this all goes together. See, I thought the anti-work movement was because college professors were students of Karl Marx and had passed that along to college students and reinforced the fact that they got a participation trophy instead of keeping score when they were playing soccer and they were sick. Well, you just nailed the two other reasons, right? But the reasons those messages stick is because when you don't have any money and you're broke, those messages make more sense. Yeah. But to somebody who's got money, you go, you talk about that's a pay cut.
If you're 5 years old, you know it's more fun to score.
There's that.
You just do.
Right.
I mean, you don't have to be a psychologist to figure this one out. You smile more when you score than when you don't score. So go score. That's what work is. It's score. Go score.
That's what it is.
Yeah. Just go score.
Yeah.
Go put the ball.
That literally doesn't even make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
Like he's having a conversation about a topic that's not actually what it's about. I mean, he's having a conversation about something, but it's not what he thinks he is.
No, once again, it's the employer mentality of no. You just, if you work really, really hard and kill yourself for low pay, Eventually, you'll get higher pay. It'll just work out. How? We don't know. It's a mystery, right? But he gives a great analogy to the sports analogy. It's like, oh, well, if you go out and you score, you'll feel better about yourself and you'll feel better about life and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, but that's great. But if my employer's taking advantage of me, my employer has all the advantage. Right? So how do I score when I'm fighting, when it's me against, like, let's say it's soccer, it's me and there's 20 other guys on the other team. How do I score against 20 guys when it's just me? He doesn't get that it's an unequal field to begin with. So they're basically saying, why am I playing if I'm just going to get my ass kicked every time?
Right. There's no point. It's sort of like it's like a gym class in elementary school
Right.
or middle school. You play all these team things, and you're always the kid who's picked last, and you always end up on the team of people who have absolutely no chance of being able to beat the whatever, and then everybody's surprised when you don't want to participate in gym class.
Right. Yeah, because if it sucks every time, then what's the point? Yeah.
I'm always on the losing team. I'm always picked last, and really the whole thing isn't fun and sucks. Like,
right.
You can't be shocked I don't want to play.
Yeah. But that's the thing they're
Doesn't
missing.
make me a loser. It makes me logical.
Right. That's the thing they're missing here. We'll watch a little bit more of this, but they don't even describe what it is, though, what the movement is and what it's about.
But it seems as though they really don't know. And I'm not even trying to be mean to them in saying this. It's just like they're having a conversation about a topic they think is important, but they're attributing it to this movement that it doesn't.
They think it's just people that don't want to work. That's not what it is. It's just, it's unfortunately named anti-work, but that's not what they're saying. They're talking about better working conditions. But he can't have that, because if that's the case, then that costs more, right? And then it's not just on the worker, it's on the employer.
And you're going to have more joy and more dignity and more choices when you do that. Now, Alex has not got that problem. He's asking a question on this.
That's right.
He's ready to run on. He's a great young man. And so, we got a lot of great young people out there. But we do have a group of participation trophy graduates who are intent on making mediocrity their goal. And it's a problem.
It is. And by the way, this is what leads to credit card debt at an all-time high, student loans all-time high. I've got to rely on somebody else to give.
Oh, where does that? I don't know where they get that from. How does that lead to credit card debt? These people just want better working conditions. Does that mean they're going out and maxing out their credit cards?
No. Well, I want to backtrack to the mediocrity thing.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
So I guess I'm about to make a statement here that probably a lot of people are going to have an opinion about and maybe disagree with me, and I'm cool with that.
Cool.
So right on into me, guys. I don't think there's anything wrong with actually just being fine with just doing pretty well at your job and not actually wanting to climb a ladder and not wanting to, grow into a management position or, I'm a teacher, become a principal or instructional coach or whatever. And I'm sick to death of stuff like that. I've had conversations with many friends, actually in many different fields, not even just in education, who are really sick of going into their performance reviews with bosses being like, so where would you like to advance your career? And they're like, actually, I really like just doing the thing I'm doing and I'm good at it. So can I just do that?
Yeah.
I'm super productive at it. I'm good at it. I'm good. But we've created this culture in our society where you're supposed to, otherwise you're a total loser. You're supposed to be trying to climb to this higher position at all times, when quality of life might be your goal.
Right.
You might like the thing you're doing and think you're pretty good at it and be happy doing that. And your goals might be in having happy other parts of your life.
Well, and the other thing about it too is
there too.
Well, the problem I have with it is you're using the term mediocre In what category? How are we using the term? I'm
Yeah.
mediocre in what? How much I make? I'm mediocre in the quality of my life. Ooh, well, I don't know. If I have a really good quality of life and a decent job and I don't really want to climb or change anything, then I'm not mediocre. I mean, I'm living pretty good.
Then I'm exceptional. I'm just not your VP of whatever, but I also have no desire to be, you know?
Well, right.
Is that mediocre? I don't know.
You know, I knew a detective and it was a god awful solve rate. It was like 70 something percent. I mean, just the guy closed, right? But he was never going to make more than a detective, which is not a ton of money. It's decent money, but it's not a ton of money. Is he mediocre? No, the guy was
Sounds like he was exceptional at what he did.
the guy was a fucking monster. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you know, what are you calling mediocre? What's the bar?
That's sort of built into our sort of culture of work in our society, is that you're mediocre if you're not trying to climb and advance into something else, even if you're exceptional at the thing that you're doing.
Well, it's the
If
problem.
you're not trying to do something else or bump up to the next whatever, then that's mediocre somehow. But I think I challenge that idea too.
Well, and it's going to go back to Dave's whole problem and the conservative whole problem, which is Worthington's law. The law that the more money you have, the better you are as a person. He believes that. So when he sits there and goes, well, mediocre, and he just throws it off like that, because in his mind, mediocre is anybody who's not rich.
And so in applying this to work, it's not only how much money you have, but if you're not actively trying to climb and get higher and higher
And make more money
in the workplace and have a fancier title and more responsibilities and make more money, let's forget the idea that might be something you're A, not interested in, and B, causes you stress and health problems and an early death. Then you're also mediocre and not good enough either,
right?
Which is ridiculous, but it's what it boils
well,
down to.
The thing I love about it with guys like Dave who are evangelical Christians is like, by his standard, Jesus Christ is a loser. Because Jesus Christ, what was his whole thing? Throw off all your ownership, follow me. Get rid of all your possessions.
You know what?
Jesus didn't own anything.
All of the guys who followed him probably quit their jobs. I mean, I don't know for sure, but it doesn't really look like they were like going and working 60 hours a week and then like finding this time for this meeting with Jesus on top of it.
Yep.
I mean, maybe they were, but I sort of felt like they quit their jobs and said, all right, let's go do this thing.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I've read this Sermon on the Mount. That's basically the whole, is throw off all your possessions and follow me. I mean, he's we're talking about the same Jesus that in the Bible says it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven, which Dave is. But he skips those parts, the parts he doesn't like. One of my other favorites from the Sermon on the Mount is Jesus talks about lawsuits, basic suits, right? And basically says, hey, if somebody basically sues you or accuses you, then you should just concede and give them what they want. You shouldn't contest it. But Dave's contested employees suing him a bunch of times. So, yeah, I mean, the whole thing is horseshit. It's this, once again, it's that mentality that money is what matters. And what these guys are saying, the anti-work people are saying is, no, my quality of life is more important than my fucking bank account. That's what they're not getting. That's why they have to, they're losers. They got trophies as kids. They're a bunch of whiny bitches. That's all they're doing now. That's all it is. But they have to do that because they don't understand it. Because they can't really debate them. How are you going to win that? I want this. No, you don't. No, I do. I
me money so that I can get the life I want. That is counterintuitive.
Well, and it leads to record numbers of 28-year-olds living in their mother's basement.
7 million men not working. because they don't like their job status.
And as a lady on CBS News that said the other day, that's highly unattractive.
That's right.
Hard to get a date.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
You don't feel real eligible because you're not.
Right.
He's a dreamer, Daddy. Yeah, that's right. He is. That's all he does.
That's right.
It means you're going to live in my basement. You're dating a dreamer. God help me.
Yeah.
I'd love for you to say he's a doer. Please tell me he's a...
Well, whatever. See, it's once again, it's just they're losers. They're losers. They're losers. You don't know the status of these guys or girls. It's a lot. I mean, it's both. I mean, and they could be dating. There are a lot of poor people that date that don't have anything. You don't have to be rich to fucking get laid.
So, wait a minute, Duncan. You don't make somebody give you pay stubs before you go on dates with them?
Well, I check their credit record first, but you know.
You pull their credit report, ask them for their.
If they got a below 650 FICO score, I don't. Yeah, they're not getting with all of this. I don't care.
I require at least a 750 credit score.
Yeah, I need to see your last 2 years' taxes.
Right.
I don't care if they're rich or poor. Oh man. So, hey baby, you wanna show me your FICO score and then take me home and deflower me? No and yes.
Your FICO score would have to be bigger than my FICO score, and that's going to be a tall damn order.
Well, we're measuring dicks. All right, let's move into this next. So this is what because they're whining about these guys being losers. So let's go to this. The real losers, the ones that Dave hates. And this actually was an interesting story. So a lot of I don't know if it's a lot. It was only 1,000 people in the study, so it's kind of a weak study. But they're talking about like 45% of parents are paying for grown children, or helping them with bills and stuff, right? Which kind of hurts their retirement, which is an issue to be discussed. But they're going to do this again, and once again, it's going to be they're just loser thing. But well, we'll let them do it because it's fun to watch them not understand or read anything.
So the folks at Fox News, Ken, contacted us a couple weeks ago and said there's an article in The Hill showing that up to 50% of American families are paying their adult children's bills to a tune of an average of $1,482 a month. Wow. And the vast majority, I forget what the number was, no, it's up to 25% of millennials, their parents are paying their housing. Meaning they're paying their house payment, their rent, or they're living in their basement. I don't know which. This is, I've never seen it like this. And so I did an op-ed that's on the front page of Fox Web right now, and Fox Business Web, on this subject. And
Boo! I did an op-ed on the Fox website. Man, he is so desperate to get in with Fox, and I don't even know why, because Fox is in so much shit right now. But all he gets is a tiny op-ed on the fucking website. Things are rough, Dave.
Blew up. The op-ed blew up. Just like this. I mean, I had a thing on social media last week that got 32 million views. It blew my mind. It blew up. And it was a clip from a couple of years ago of me taking a call from these people that were almost $1 million in debt, and only 200,000 of it was their mortgage. I mean, it was amazing. And I don't know why the thing blew up. It's calls we take here all the time. I really couldn't see anything different, but something was special on TikTok, and it just went nuts. So I guess that TikTok generation just had never seen.
They've not seen that.
Seen someone actually know the answer to the question and care deeply about the people on the other side. Care enough to tell them the truth, and we tell them the truth. Tell you the truth here. Sometimes you don't like it, but
by the way, Lace, I looked for this TikTok that he's talking about. I couldn't find it.
Oh, okay.
I mean, 32 million people. You think it'd be fucking easy? I spent like an hour and a half looking for it. Couldn't find it.
All right. Well.
So.
We'll never know.
I tell you the truth, but this thing of parents, you and I have been talking about this a lot. in America right now with the labor crisis. We're going to talk about it more on May the 4th with this thing with Mike Rowe that we're doing. And you guys ought to sign up and watch that live stream that we're doing.
Yada, yada, yada. Get to it, Dave.
Into this loss. Mike Rowe at Dirty Jobs and I were talking.
Come on.
Hard things.
That's right. Yeah, there's two
calluses are a thing of the past.
Yeah, there's two things that I think parents have eliminated over the last few decades: hard things and scary things. Hard things where it's not scary, it's just really, really hard. I'll give you an example. My father, the first job I got, I was 14. He went and got the job. He knew I needed to work.
Oh, God. So,
do they ever get to a point?
No, it's just old. It's the old guy, life was so hard when I was a kid shit. I mean, it's just bumming me out, dude. People don't have calluses anymore. Really? Really? There are a lot of people that work in construction and manual labor, and granted, a lot of them are immigrants. But it's like, Jesus Christ. I don't know what these guys are getting at with this shit. Anyway, here's the deal. So these fucking idiots. This article from The Hill, I got I got it from money.com. And they talk about it. And here it is. We'll just go through it real quick because if they go through it, it debunks their whole bullshit about it's just American kids are lazy. Millennials are shit, which is all they really got anymore is they just piss on the young, right? So savings.com surveyed 1,000 Americans. So not exactly a comprehensive study here, okay? So just take it with a grain of salt or a gallon. So roughly 45% of the people in that survey, parents said they provided financial help for at least one of their adult children. About a third of those were millennials from 27 to 40. And that's consistent with previous stuff. All right. Average amount parents providing from their children, about $1,400. That's about what he said. But it's things like groceries, cell phone payments, and housing costs. Not like, trips to Spain or anything. 50% of adult children get financial help are still living at home. Parents a decade or less away from retirement are putting a lot more into supporting their kids to the tune of about $2,100, which is more than they contribute to their savings, which is unfortunate, but it is. 40% of those surveyed said they would be willing to pull from their retirement funds to support their children. So these parents want to do this, right? So nobody's forcing them, right? Now they're going to say, well, you're shitty parents because you're coddling your kids. That's all their real argument is. But the big one is parents are also taking on the student loan debt of their kids, which is what's hurting them, because student loan debt has put their kids behind. So the takeaway here was, well, it may seem young adults using their parents as financial crutch. The economic circumstances they inherited leave them with few other options. The number of people between 25 and 34 living at home is 16%. That's 7% higher than in the 60s, right? When there was a bit of an economic crisis from Vietnam and all that. Factors of the widening generational wealth gap, right, which we talked about earlier, right? Housing costs and the global crisis like the pandemic and 2008 recession are setting young people back financially. So this is the thing, and this is what the study shows from savings.com. These are the things setting them back: recession, global crisis from the pandemic. Federal Reserve data shows millennial generational wealth nearly doubled during the pandemic, which is great, but they're not keeping up with their parents, the boomers, who hold more than half the country's wealth. So the elderly getting ready to, retire, or who are retired and retiring, hold half the fucking money. Right? So their kids are not in a position to buy houses, right? Which goes to this: purchase property, right? So the situation here is the economic circumstances of the last 20 years have been so devastating, right? You think about it. 2001 recession, Then 9/11 happens. Then there was the 2003 recession, right? Then there was the 2008, the Great Recession, which we still haven't fully recovered from. And it was a very slow recovery. And then Trump became president, blew $8 trillion in the debt, did tax cuts for the rich, and then the pandemic. Think about it, Lacey. In the if you're 40 or younger, the last 20 years, right? You have never lived in a booming economy. You've never worked in a booming economy.
Right.
You've never lived in an upside economy. It's always fear of recession. And then to sit there and go, well, the problem is they're just not tough. We didn't coddle them. I'm sorry, Dave built his career. He graduated college in 82. He built his career during some of the largest economic growth in this country's history in the 80s and 90s.
That's true.
He didn't have to work in a recessionary, contractionary position all the time. And he got to work in an era before machines and automation started eliminating jobs like they were candy.
So it was easier for people to go out and get a whole plethora of jobs that have more or less been eliminated technologically at this point.
Right. So the guy that had it the easiest is the one bitching at us about how fucking we're too weak and we're not hard enough. When in fact, our generation is 3 times more productive than his. And we get paid less. How about the reality that we just got fucked? And now we're sitting there saying, screw this. But a lot of these boomer parents, it's like, they love their kids. They don't want their kids to fucking suffer. But they also realize their kids are not in an economic position to do anything. So what do you do? Do you just let them suffer? Because they're not going to get anywhere that way. It just puts them behind. Or do you give them a hand? Because you want them to succeed.
Right.
And obviously from this study and from what they're talking about, these boomer parents that are helping their kids out, they don't feel like they're being taken advantage of necessarily. They're willing to help their kids out.
Or, they might be finding it to be tight and a bit of a struggle and whatever, but they're like, yeah, what are we supposed to do? I let my adult kid move back in with me because of where they're at financially, and that's just what's happening.
Well, and I've had this discussion before with a boomer parent with their kid, and is a little bit younger than me, and it's like I'm talking about his financial situation and blah blah blah, and it's like he got a bachelor's degree, he's got a decent job, but it doesn't pay that much, and his parents are like, well, I don't understand that. I'm like, and I had to do the math for them, and I showed them like they were talking about, well, when I started my career in 84, I was making $17,000 a year, right? And I was like, yeah, but that's like $70,000 in today's dollars. So you and your husband were making about $130,000 or $40,000 a year, equivalent today, and your kid and his wife are making about 78 total. So you made more than double, almost more than double. Different era. You're living at a different time. If we just sit down and do the fucking numbers, then they sit there and go, oh shit, we should help them buy a house.
But honestly, it's not even saying you have to help them buy a house, but you at least need to look at it, through more realistic lenses to try to understand what they're dealing with, because you can't necessarily compare it to the economy of, what it was when they were the same age.
Well, right. And the other thing to remember too is, like, if you're talking about the 80s and 90s, You're talking about before we were really international. I mean, just economically, the world is now it's all international. It's all interchangeable. People move from different countries and whatnot. But back in the 80s and 90s, if you were a white guy, you were competing against other white guys. That was it. That was the only demographic you were competing against. Today, you're a white guy, you're competing against women. You're competing against black people, Hispanic people, Asian people. Back then, you didn't have to compete against those people. Those people didn't have they couldn't get their foot in the fucking door. So now it's a whole different market. The problem is it's not that, oh, we're just coddling these people too much. It's a whole different market. It's more competitive. And wealth inequality is a bigger fucking issue. And there's a bigger problem with the fact that it's more difficult to get ahead because pay is not kept pace with inflation. And it is not kept pace with, especially with productivity. So this is just grandpa bitching about, well, it was harder in my day. Was it really though? Probably not. Remember there was a movie. It was called Dead Presidents, and I'll skip the plot, but the guy's in trial and he's getting convicted, and his attorney's saying, "Hey, look, he's a vet. Could you give him the minimum sentence because for his time serving in Vietnam, right? He's a black kid." And the judge is a white guy. I think it was played by Martin Sheen. And he's like, well, Vietnam wasn't a real war. I was in World War II. That was a real war. And I'm like, wait a minute. We lost a lot of fucking people in Vietnam. Let's not.
Nobody's saying.
Yeah. I mean...
So, actually, it goes to this whole argument that people love to make. They feel the need to discount something because they're somehow afraid it's discounting their thing.
Right.
It's like nobody's suggesting that everything was super easy in your situation. It doesn't mean that theirs isn't difficult.
Right. Right.
We don't need to have a race for who has it worst. Like, literally, this is not a competition any of us need to participate in.
Right. I think the problem they have is they just assume everybody's a white guy that had their lifestyle. And if you're going through that, then they're probably all lazy shits that aren't working. But if it's somebody that wasn't a white guy with your lifestyle, or was a white guy that grew up poor, right? Then they're probably in a different circumstance. There's other things affecting them that you're not factoring into the equation. It's not that they're all just lazy and don't want to work. So.
Right. Maybe some of them are, but like that surely cannot be everybody.
Well, not at those numbers, no.
Oh.
No, of course not. Then you just have to assume that, look, 60% of the population are just lazy, mediocre shits. And there's nothing we can do about it. So let's just give up. Right? And go to a monarchy. I mean, that's all you can do at that point. Well.
Oh, on that note.
Yeah, I don't have anything more to say about that. It's just nonsense over and over. But anyway, thanks everybody for joining us. Everybody, Lacey, where can I catch you?
All right, as always, you are looking for information, articles that I've written, for information about coaching programs or workshops, go to mysenswithsense.com. You can feel free to write into either of us with questions, topic requests, arguments, clips you want us to look at.
Absolutely.
Anytime. And where can they do that, Duncan?
You can do that at our email address. It's below, gossipfinancead@outlook.com. Other than that, thanks everybody for joining us, and we will catch you next time. Thank you. All right.